Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about 5 things I think really needs to change about Record Store Day. There's a bunch of links down below, make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlists that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So I guess this is kind of a part 2 to my video from last week where I talked about how I kind of felt like Record Store Day has lost some of the magic over the years. But I got 5 things today I think moving forward can make Record Store Day an even bigger event than it ever has been before. You know, some of the blame I do put at the feet of Record Store Day itself, the entity that is Record Store Day. I think some of it goes towards labels and bands also. And then to a very minor extent, I think record stores could do some things a little bit differently also to make it a better process. I think first and foremost, the big thing for me is that labels and bands just need to press albums that people want. I think it's the biggest thing that's changed over Record Store Day over the last, 7 or 8 years. I feel like the titles have really gotten kind of watered down. I think we're seeing a lot more picture discs. I mean, we're getting a picture disc of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac for Record Store Day this year. I mean, how many times has that album been pressed over the years? And I'm sure there's far better sounding pressings of that album than the picture disc you're getting for RSD this year. So picture discs, we're seeing a lot more soundtracks. We're seeing a lot more live albums than I think we've ever seen before. And I think it's kind of diluted the overall list for Record Store Day every year. Because I remember when I first started going out for Record Store Day, there was always a handful of those really big titles that hadn't been pressed for a really long time, or they're getting some kind of like expanded edition for Record Store Day, or like a cool color variant, something along those lines that really push people out to record stores on Record Store Day. You can say what you want about her, but that's the one thing I give Taylor Swift a lot of credit for is she presses things and releases things for Record Store Day that really push people out in droves to buy her album. The RSD release that she had last year was what the Long Pond Sessions for Folklore. I mean, that album sold 120,000 copies in one day, and it's like I said, I want to see more releases like that are just kind of a standard release, something a little bit special that hadn't been released before, or something that has been released in a long time to kind of push people out for Record Store Day. The second thing I would love to see changed is this is something that kind of falls back on record stores themselves, and I completely get it. There's so many record stores that are struggling across the country. It's kind of hard to put together the funds to do something big, but I would love to see Record Store Day go back to being a big event. I know I talked about it in my video last week, but I used to go to Record Store Days several years ago, and it would be an all-day event. They would have food trucks there. They would have the local radio station. They would have giveaways all day long. It's like I said, it was an all-day event to keep people there and kind of build this community around record stores. And I feel like for the most part, a lot of record stores have gotten away from that. It's kind of like this commercialized thing now. You just kind of stand in line, buy your records, and go home. And kind of, I feel it's kind of robbing a lot of that specialty from Record Store Day. And like I said, I understand that record stores have very small budgets and they don't have a lot of money to do really big special things. But, like I said, if you're bringing in like food vendors and things like that, I don't know how much of a cost there really would be to independent record stores. And like I said, it would turn Record Store Day back into this big event. The third thing I would love to see change for Record Store Day, and this falls firmly on the shoulders of the Record Store Day entity itself. This is one thing I'll probably get some pushback on, but it's okay. It probably really only affects people here in the Midwest and maybe out east, is I would love to see Record Store Day get moved from April to June. And that's mainly because of the weather. The weather in April here in the Midwest can be crazy. I mean, it could be nice. It could have a couple inches of snow on the ground also. I think having the better weather, if they moved it to, say, the third week in June, where you're firmly in spring, I think that having that better weather, you'd get a better or bigger overall crowd out to record stores for Record Store Day. And also having the better weather, I think, would also help, like I said before, bring out vendors and do other things that, doesn't have to be inside the record store. It could be outside, in the street, in a parking lot, have this be this big event that I'd love to see Record Store Day go back to being. The fourth thing I'd love to see changed, this is something that I think would really have to be a collaboration between Record Store Day and independent record stores, is I think there needs to be a standardized process for the way Record Store Day works. At least in my area, there's 3 kind of competing different ways that Record Store Day happen. I've been there's a couple of record stores in my area where they open up the doors and it's just a free for all. People will go in, you can grab as many copies as you want of any album, and I think that really hurts the people that have stood in line for hours waiting to grab a title. The other way that I see Record Store Day, the second way that Record Store Day happens, I think is probably the pretty standard one, where they open up the doors and everyone just kind of files in and just kind of you can only grab 1 copy of an item and just move on. I think it's kind of the standard way. And then the third way is the way that I know Dearborn Music does this, I know Amoeba does this also, where they have these lists where when the store opens up, they walk down the line, hand out wish lists to everyone, and you kind of fill out what you want, and then they go through and actually pull in order. I think that's the fair way to do a Record Store Day event. I know that and I think that does kind of take away from some of the fun of trying to hunt for things on Record Store Day. But if you're standing in line for 5, 6, 7 hours, and then you miss out on a title because somebody runs around in front of you in the store to grab what you're looking for, I think it's kind of bullshit. And I think that if to have the fair way to do it, I think is the way that Dearborn Music does it, is the way that that Amoeba does it. And, if you stand in line, you're one of the first 5 or 10 people in line, there's a good chance you're going to get what you're looking for. Because I've had that happen before. I think it was one of the first years I went to Record Store Day. I was standing in line for something. I knew what I wanted. And then when the store opened up, I went in, and people kind of go all over the place looking for whatever they want. I ended up missing out on 2 RSD titles, even though I was one of the first people in line. And then I did end up finding it later at a different record store. But I think, like I said, having that standardized process, I think would make a better overall experience for Record Store Day. And then the 5th and final thing I would love to see changed about Record Store Day is please, please, please get rid of these super ultra limited RSD releases. To have some kind of regional release of 1 to 300 copies of an album, or sometimes it's like 500 copies, I think is ridiculous. I think there needs to be some kind of a minimum release or a minimum number of copies for a release, whether that's 1,500, which is still pretty limited, 1,500, maybe 2,500 copies. I think it's like the bare minimum there needs to be for Record Store Day. Anything less than that, I mean, you're really kind of creating this ultra inflated market that a majority of the fans that love that album just aren't able to get a copy of it, because you've got scalpers go in there or these flippers that go in there and buy up all the copies that are available so they can resell them on whether it's Discogs or eBay at super inflated prices, because they know if there's 250, 500 copies of it that are going to be available, they're going to be able to charge a lot more money for that release. I really think having some kind of minimum quantity for RSD or to be included in as an RSD release, I think is a great way moving forward to kind of do it. Because like I said, you're really hurting if you're a fan of an album and that album has been pressed in 10 years or more, and they're going to do 500 copies for RSD, which I've seen. They do regional releases every year for RSD. It's very unlikely that you're going to be able to grab a copy of it, and you're going to have to go on Discogs and pay $200 or $300 to get a copy of it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just press, like I said, 1,500, 2,000 copies as a minimum. I think it'd be a great way moving forward for RSD. Because even at 1,500 copies, that's not a lot. That's still pretty limited release. When I see stuff on Record Store Day that's, anything under 2,000 copies, I know can be pretty difficult to get a hold of. But I think having that bare minimum requirement on an RSD release will help kind of push those albums out to the people that love them. I think you still kind of get around that a little bit and say, look, if you want to do a regional release, a small batch release, you can still do it. You just wouldn't be able to put the RSD name on it. It wouldn't be on the RSD list. It wouldn't be on the RSD website. You could still do a 200 to 500 count run of an album as a regional release on April 20th. It just wouldn't be included with everything else. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think about these 5 things that I'd love to see changed about Record Store Day. Like I said, I know the one pushing Record Store Day back to June, I guess it can be a pretty hot topic. But I think it would really help people here in the Midwest and the East. I know down south it's a different, in June it can definitely be a lot hotter than it is in April. So I understand there's kind of there's a variation to that, the way that people are going to look at that. But I'd love to know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep all spinning. Peace.